Hey guys, Green Bird here. I hope everyone is doing awesome and loving life. I've been making a lot of bifaces lately, to be completed in the spring. I haven't been filming all of them because it's a pretty redundant process, but I thought I'd record this one, as it's a bit of a unique spall that I'll be working with. As you can see, this spall has thicker ends, and a more narrow middle. This will present a challenge when it comes to end shock. So as usual, I'm going to start by grinding to remove any weak edges and strengthen the platforms that I'll use to take thinning flakes with. This seems like a small unimportant detail, but it'll make all the difference when you begin to take flakes. If your platforms are too weak, they'll crush when you strike them, instead of directing the energy further into the stone and producing a longer flake with a feathered termination, which is of course, the goal after all. I don't have the privacy to record a voiceover, and I can't afford to hire Chuck Learns Lithics, being on the shoestring budget that I'm on, so you'll have to settle for Billy, who I'm pretty sure is the same narrator for Anderson Lithics. Due to the nature of this spall, you'll probably notice that I'm doing more trimming, and taking more shorter flakes than I usually do. At least in the beginning. This spall has some amazing banding, and I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to capture as much of it as possible. The banding slightly changes the performance of the obsidian, and can sometimes result in stubborn areas, or less predictable flaking results. Right there you'll notice that the copper insert on the opposite end of the tool I'm using, fell out. This is one of the drawbacks of friction fit tools. The vibration caused by the impact of the billet hitting against the stone, has loosened the shims used to hold in the copper pressure flaking insert on the other side, allowing it to fall free from the tool. Those shorter flakes are starting to pay off, and as you can see the spall is starting to flatten out and resemble a workable biface. But we still have a ways to go. I'm making sure to keep the edges well ground so I can better control the flakes. But I don't want to overgrind the edges because this will actually change the shape of my platform, and in some cases, remove it altogether. Changing the shape of the platform will affect my ability to control the direction the flake runs, and removing the platform altogether will affect the distance that the flake will run, and could also affect how the flake terminates, as the increased width of the platform area will absorb and dissipate force from the strike rather than focusing it and directing it to travel in a more focused and controlled manner. That was a nice thin flake, and a perfect example of the importance of a properly prepared platform. Those thin flakes are important when you want to remove thickness, without losing any of the width or length of the piece. There's a 1/2 to 3/4 inch crack, that runs off the edge of this piece. I'm not sure if this is a flaw inside the obsidian or if I caused that during the spalling process, but I'm going to have to keep an eye on that throughout the process. It's visible on both the front and back of the obsidian, but sometimes, especially with Rainbow Obsidian, it can be hard to tell if the crack runs all the way through the piece, or if it's just on one side and you're seeing it through the translucent face of the opposing side. I'm going to grind the edges again, and do some trim work. For me personally, I like to keep an eye on the shape of the piece, even in the early stages so the shape doesn't get away from me. It's much more work to correct the shape towards the end of the process than it is to be mindful of it in the earlier stages. I've sped up the video speed 2 times, but if you slow it down or pause it, you can see the crack here from the other side. The reason I'm taking mostly shorter flakes, instead of long flakes, is because at this stage I'm still trying to match those thicker ends to the thinner center of the piece. Usually this process would be done in reverse, as you ideally want the center of the piece you're working to be thicker than the ends, to mitigate end shock. But in this case, I didn't have a choice due to the starting shape of the spall. But, there's a nice long thinning flake. I'll take them when the situation allows. So at this point, there isn't much to discuss. I'm going to just continue to grind, flake, shape, and repeat the process until the ends of the piece and the center of the piece meet in a convex pattern, slightly resembling a flattened football. I'm losing more width than I would like because I'm chasing that crack and trying to work it out of the final piece, but I should still have plenty of material to produce a suitable biface. So in an attempt to pass the time during the less interesting part of this video, I thought I would ask you a riddle. I'll even give you a few minutes to figure it out. Why couldn't the Mexican magician disappear on the count of 3? Think hard, you should be able to get this. So as you can see, I'm definitely making progress on this piece, and it's continuing to flatten out nicely. However, I've developed a wrapping centerline, or a twist on the edges. This is most likely a result of a combination of factors: the shape of the bulbous ends in the beginning, and an imperfect thinning process on my part. In this case, the twist is very subtle and should be easy to correct, as the piece is still thick enough. But if I let this get away from me, and do not address the issue right away, it could result in an uncorrectable error. Or in the best case scenario, a significant alteration of size and shape of the final product. If you haven't yet entered the drawing to win a free box of shirt, then pause this video and visit Anderson Lithic's YouTube page. Subscribe, and leave a comment to enter to win. But make sure you come back here, so you don't miss the answer to the riddle. If you have a guess, put it in the comments. Okay. So you've had a few minutes to think about the riddle. Let's see how you did. Why couldn't the Mexican magician disappear on the count of 3? The answer is because he disappeared without a trace. So I think we'll call this one finished for now. It's thin enough to use indirect percussion on, and that will be the task at hand, the next time I see this by face. I lost more length than I would have liked, and as you can see, that crack is pretty ugly, but this odd-shaped spall turned out to be great practice, and an enjoyable learning experience for me. If you have a dad joke that is funnier than mine, please leave it in the comments. Have a great day.